Okay, cool. Welcome back. Body-based therapy, or other foundations of bioenergetics with me, Devraj. I think we're up to episode 11 now. And very exciting this week, we're going to look at breakthrough exercises. So breakthrough exercises are exercises that are specifically designed to put you under pressure quite quickly, to kick off the anxiety circuits inside your brain, mediated by your nervous system, to give you a feeling like, wow, this is too intense and I just need to stop it. And they do that with the purpose that to try and train you to breathe through. Or rather, to give you the opportunity to breathe through and come through the other side. And this serves a heap of kind of useful conscious and unconscious purposes. Firstly, because when intensity and pressure come psychologically, we tend to clench up. Most importantly, we clench the muscles of the throat instinctively. We try to suppress the level of emotion that's being generated in our body and that's trying to come up and be felt. So we clench. And the problem with this clenching is that it gets written into the body. The muscles become armoured. The clenching just becomes a part of who we are over the years, and it's not easy to undo it. But if we can put ourselves in a situation which is like super intense and then not clench or start to clench, but then remember, okay, I mustn't clench, I must increase my breathing and keep going through, then this is very, very useful. This trains the nervous system on an unconscious level, that actually it's okay to breathe and feel. Because for many of us, our nervous system is actually running our life. It is constantly, subliminally monitoring what's going on, opening us and closing us to different situations. It's like a giant mother taking care of us, but without our consent and being rather overprotective, the smothering kind of mother. And so if we can have this experience of something very intense happening and being able to breathe through it, this over-mothering, smothering mother, the nervous system, may learn that maybe this guy actually can feel this now and it's really okay. On another kind of level, on a psychological level, up in the mind, there will be many things in life that we're afraid of doing, which we potentially could do. Particularly stuff where we really stretch out and take more risks and become an incredible, awesome kind of being. And we don't do those things because of the fear, and it's a learned pattern of keeping small on some level. And again, having this very intense experience and being able to breathe through it and come out the other side and realize that it's okay changes that as well. It starts to cause our mind to not shut down to possibilities that may surround us or maybe around us at the time, but we could take advantage of. So whereas my brother's offering me to take over the cab company with him, but it feels a bit risky, I don't really want to do it, and it's a lot of work and there's all these judgments or whatever, suddenly it's like, maybe I should evaluate that more rationally. Maybe I could do it and it could give me more money and I could step up. Back in the 90s and indeed ongoingly, very famous American coach, Tony Robbins, he used breakthrough techniques like firewalking or, having to be on your feet all day at a conference and not being allowed to sit down to achieve the same ends. To teach the mind that actually you can do it. You can do a lot more than you think you can. Okay, so what we're basically talking about here is postures which are super intense or become super intense relatively quickly, and then we want to get out of them or we want to close down, but we have to try and keep breathing our way through until some level of relaxation occurs and we feel like we could keep going with it. Two classics for this kind of thing are the wall sit. Let's just see if we've got enough space to... The wall sit is when you sit with your back to a wall, make sure you haven't got a horizontal rail, and you should try and get your upper legs to be horizontal. So your knees are kind of at a right angle, and then, usually within a minute, most people, this is pretty intense and you try to breathe through. One example. Another good one I've used before is the crucifix position, where standing, you just check that your arms are basically fully to the side, as though there's kind of cords attached to your wrists pulling you out, and they're not back or up and they're not up or down, and you just try to breathe and stay in that. And again, like the wall sit, within a minute or so, that will become super intense. But you can breathe your way through. Now those two postures are very, very intense and they can be super challenging for people. So I tend to use one myself, which is undoubtedly intense because it's got to be intense, but it's a bit easier to breathe your way through, basically. And that is arms raised, which simply means putting your arms right up in the air and then trying to breathe your way through, trying to keep your arms up. You can walk around the room, you keep your arms up and you just keep breathing and feeling. Generally within the first few minutes, people will be like, oh, it's enough now, I want to give it up, And you have to keep increasing your breath and just trying to be okay with it. At a certain point, if you keep breathing, you will find that you can keep going for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I lived for a long time in a spiritual community in the UK, and I would regularly lead this exercise for like 35-40 minutes in the mornings, and people would not, they obviously they didn't enjoy it very much until the end. But I mean, it does incredibly change it changes a lot of your personality, because you just realize you can do a lot more than you think you can, and you can also open up the muscles when you're in this intense stress simply by breathing through. The other good thing with this arms up exercise is that it tends to draw energy up your body, basically. So it also seems to have an effect on like low self-esteem or, general people clinging on to too much negativity, that kind of thing. It seems to change that. And in fact, if you were to go to India to a thing called the Kumbh Mela, which is like an annual gathering of different kind of siddhus and holy saints and yoga practitioners, you will find people who they usually do one arm, they keep their arm up for so long, like literally years, that the joints and the muscles actually atrophy, so they can't take it down any longer. I mentioned just now about doing it in a group, and that's kind of psychologically interesting because it's a lot easier when you do it in a group. And the reason for that is one, there's a group energy. There's a group energy. A load of people are doing something. It kind of creates its own energy and supports people who might perhaps struggle with a certain exercise to keep going. The second reason is peer pressure. For example, if you have a load of 25-year-old guys in the group room and they've all got to keep their arms up, there will be this natural competitive instinct, and it's not just 25-year-old men, it's women and people of all ages, but it's particularly noticeable in that demographic, and one guy's like, wow, if I'm keeping my arms up, no way am I going to let them down until at least, that guy over there does it or whatever, there's this. So peer pressure can be beneficial. You can use it to the good. But of course, this also means when you do it on your own, you don't have the group energy, you don't have the peer pressure, you're just there on your own, trying to do it. Another interesting thing about this exercise is it kind of teaches you the nature of your personal resistance. I think I've spoken earlier in this series about the nervous system and how it tends to be running our life, and pulling us into situations, taking us out of situations according to how safe it feels, and then to get us out of situations because it's operating subliminally. It's not like there's suddenly a red light going off in our brain, in our conscious perception. It's more like certain narratives get played, and it's very, very handy to know what narratives your nervous system plays to get you out of a situation. And you can do that again with this great exercise, because it takes a little longer than the crucifix or the wall sit to really come on. And so you've got a bit more time to understand, what kind of narratives does my mind start to play if I just hold my arms up in the air for 10 minutes, say, or 20 minutes. Could be walking around the room and then, suddenly in my mind, it's pointless doing this. What's the point? There's no need, or it might go into some negativity, you're not good enough. It's all very well for that guy over there or whatever, I'm just not the same, I don't need to do this. I don't need to prove this to myself, whatever. There's all sorts of stories that your nervous system will have learned to play in your mind to get you out of a situation. Okay, so just to give you the basic rules, if you want to give this exercise a go, you can do it to music, of course. Maybe some high energy dance music or something is good. It's good to put a timer on so you know how long you've done. Maybe have it in the background, or at least look at a clock. And then, the basic rule is you've got to keep your arms up. And what that means is you've got to keep your elbows above your shoulders. If your elbows come to the level of your shoulders at any time, exercise is over. It's complete. You've finished at that point. So you've got to keep your elbows above your shoulders. If you can do 30 minutes, you can be considered to have passed, basically. Feel free to walk around. Something that also helps, if you're in a space where you can make some sound or express just the feeling that's inside, that's being brought up, that can also help. It creates a bit of catharsis and helps you to keep going. Okay, cool. So that's breakthrough exercises. I hope you have some fun with that. It can be a bit of a demon, that exercise, a bit of a demon taunting you until you can get to 30 minutes. But, that's just part of it. That's just part of it. Okay, thank you very much for tuning in, and see you again shortly for some more foundations of bioenergetics.